This is the Tropic Pianist Gamers podcast, episode 12. The title of the podcast is Filmmaker to Children's Author, and I have my special guest with me today, who is Ian James. Hi, Ian. Nice to meet
Joe.
you.
And
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name's Ian James, and for years I've been working as a theatre writer and producer, then a film writer and producer. But I've just decided to take my first baby steps into writing children's books for children.
Well, that's quite a contrast in careers. Would you like to tell a bit of your story of how you started then?
Yeah, sure. I'm from Liverpool originally, as you probably guessed from the accent. And I started very briefly as an actor for about a week. And what I realised, although I enjoyed acting, I didn't enjoy the audition process. And when you're living in Liverpool, you've got to go to London mainly for auditions.
Yes.
And it was a hell of an expense and a hell of a trip, and normally didn't yield much success. But I was always intrigued by who was sitting out in the dark, making all the decisions. And you never really got to meet them. You just got told that's enough and off you go. Wait for your train home. So that kind of fascinated me by who's making those decisions, and I'd kind of be interested in that, really. And so I set up a small theatre company in Liverpool, and we started to write our own plays and perform them. And I didn't mind being in those because I didn't have to audition for them. We'd written the parts. But I quickly realised that turning up every night to do the same thing, that was a bit boring as well. I enjoyed setting them up and doing them. And then once they were up and, if the audiences liked them, I'd kind of had, that was it. I wanted to do something else then. So that led me into producing. I loved the writing and kept on writing, but I liked the setting up of things and the producing of them. And then after a while, I was very fortunate to meet a writer in Liverpool called Willie Russell, because we'd written a play about the Beatles and put it on in Liverpool, and he came to see it because he'd written a play that was a huge West End success called John, Paul, George, Ringo and Bert. And so it was all about Bert, the kind of the fifth Beatle. So he came to see it, and it was lovely, and we got on really well. And I said to him, I'd like to kind of go into producing, really. And he suggested, very fortuitously for me, that maybe we should do Educate and Rita together. So then I stopped acting, moved into producing, but kept writing. And then it was once I was producing theatre, I had a couple of friends. Neil was one of them, who wrote Phoenix Nights with Peter Kay. And we've been talking about doing film for ages. We were doing plays together. He wrote the Beatles play with me. And then we just thought, well, why don't we try and do a film? And I suppose when you're early 20s, anything's possible. You're not hindered by any self-doubt. So we just thought, okay, let's do it. So I didn't know anything about film though. So I took myself off to Manchester University and did a degree in film production and business management. And it's a cracking course at Manchester Victoria, because you actually get hold of cameras, you write scripts and you get cameras and you make stuff and edit them. And so when it came out, what I'd learned was the language of film. I didn't know going in. I knew theatre, but didn't know film. And then took myself off to London. I met my now partner, Elaine, who was in London. She's a casting director. And so I went down to London, and that's kind of where you raise money for film. You can shoot a film wherever you like, but you need to kind of be in London. So I did that for many years, and still do it today and enjoying it. But then the pandemic hit. And I think, like many people, you got chance, because the film industry stopped in a heartbeat. Nothing happened. And everyone was kind of thinking, well, when it comes back, if it comes back, do I really enjoy it? And I decided I do, but there was deep down, I'd kind of always had this fondness for the animation films and the way children's stories are told. And, when you're writing conventional adult-based drama, you're contained by a big stick of reality, really. What's possible, what's believable, what isn't believable, what's feasible. When you get into animation and children's stories, anything's possible.
Yes.
Anything's feasible.
As mother of a small child, I can confirm.
Yeah. Well, you're only limited by your own imagination then. And so when the pandemic gave me a chance to sit down and say, all these ideas I've got about children's stories and picture books, and now's the time to do it. I'm going to do it. Now's the time because we're in lockdown. I've got the time. And that's where this came from, really. This kind of deep-seated desire to explore that world. It kind of gave me the chance to do it, which has led me to kind of where I am today, really. Trying to, in the process of launching my first children's book.
Okay, so tell us more about your children's book then.
Yeah, well, it was funny that I read a lot online about kind of, people think writing a picture book is easy because it's short. It's incredibly difficult, because you're limited by a huge economy of words. You've probably got between 5, maybe 700. I know some are longer, but that's normally the word count. So every word's got to fight for its space on the page.
Yeah.
And it applies to film just as much as it does to this, and I'm sure your own books that you write. Certainly in drama or fiction, what it's about and what happens are two different things. And so I really needed to focus on what the story was about. And so the first book is called The Elephant in the Room. And I remember talking to a nephew, he was only about 6 or 7, and we were talking about that phrase. And we were talking about what it meant, and he didn't have a clue, and he shouldn't have a clue at that age. But he loves the visual idea that there's an elephant in the room. And so for me, it married up kind of what the meaning is and what the visualization of that means to a child. So that's where the book came from. A young boy who comes home from school with a very simple problem. He's been left out of a game, but to him it's massive. But obviously to his parents, it's not. It's an easily fixable problem. But he's not telling them. They can sense something's wrong, but he's not talking about it. And so then this elephant starts appearing to him in his bedroom, behind the curtains, in the shower, behind the shower curtain, eating his food. He's just causing chaos and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's the whole point of the book.
Yeah.
And the child learns at the end, Henry learns that, with the help of the elephant, if he doesn't tell his mum and dad what's wrong, the elephant's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and cause more chaos. So the lesson of the book really is kind of it's to encourage children to kind of, doesn't matter what your problem is, talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. That's an important point to make.
Yeah, well, I've also learned that coming on the back of the pandemic, you look at kind of a lot of mental health charities dealing with children and the impact they had at that kind of formative time where they're developing relationships, early schoolers. And they were stolen of those couple of years where, they're working it out and who are they and talking about stuff and they didn't get that. So what struck me at the moment is there's quite a lot of 8, 9-year-olds who didn't have that time to talk.
Well, my own child was about 3 to 4 in the main pandemic, so he lost a lot of his preschool experience of socializing. Yeah. So
and it's massive.
Exactly what you mean.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that book might kind of resonate with parents. That it's a good book. That I've road tested it a little bit with kind of people I know and school teachers, and they've all said it did generate a conversation about communication and talking and how important it is. So fingers crossed. That's good.
Cool. So I guess the question is, when do you think it might be available for us to find?
Well, I've done it. I knew nothing about this world of children's books, and I did try a couple of years ago. Well, before the pandemic in London, I knew a lot of agents who represented writers in film. I spoke to them about their children's section and had a very tentative conversation with a couple of agents, and it was even though I kind of had a reputation of doing what I'm doing in the film side, it didn't cut across. And the amount of times agents and publishers as well would say, our lists are full, we can't take anyone on, and so I kind of left it. And as I said, the pandemic kind of brought me back into it to think, I'm going to do this. And I was very lucky to chat to a couple of people who'd been through a company called TAUK Publishing. And it's a self-publishing process, but they very much hold your hand. And a lovely woman there called Estelle Mayer. I talked to her and she guided me through the whole process, how to do it, what to do, what illustrator to talk to, and which ones I might get on with. Without them, I'd be in the dark. So I'm at the point now where the book's done, the book's completed and printed. But coming from the film world, you'd never release a film without trying to build some sort of presence or PR or publicity and put trailers together. So I'm in that world of, I need some trailers, I need some PR generating. I've just started. I didn't exist on social media because I didn't have to. And with film, it wasn't really a thing. Actors do, I know that, but producers really don't. But I've set up an author page on Facebook and an author page on Instagram, all with a view to kind of slowly building up the presence that a book is coming. And so I'm in the process of doing that. But it can be quite overwhelming, this whole thing.
When you're not used to it, yeah.
Oh, I'm not used to it at all.
Dropping in a wide, big ocean.
It's massive, yeah, and very deep, and there's a lot of boxes to tick. So what I'm trying to do, sorry, in a long-winded answer to your question, when am I launching? I haven't fixed a date, but I'm roughly thinking September, when the new school term starts again. Get the holidays out of the way and aim for that time. And it gives me time to build up and put all the kind of ducks in the road that I think, for what I've ascertained so far, I need in terms of PR and building awareness and building some kind of following, so that when I do launch, there's some building bricks in place that might help kind of bolster the launch, really. So September is the flag in the sand.
You got the whole summer to work on your marketing then.
Yeah, I need it.
Longer days in the hot weather.
Well, I'm a great believer.
I'll see an elephant at any point. Actual physical elephant. Whether it's an inflatable one or a real one.
Yeah, I'm not going to go as far as to drag out a real elephant for marketing. Yeah. Maybe a small.
Keep an eye on your Facebook page is the tip, I think, isn't it? There.
Yeah, Facebook, and I'm going to set up a website as well. But right now it's Facebook and Instagram. I can manage them.
Cool. So yeah, you were talking to me initially about the process of creativity and self-development that went along with your journey to becoming a children's author. So you were saying about taking it slowly, weren't you, and how patience is important.
Well, I think anyone out there kind of trying to achieve anything, but certainly in writing. The guy I mentioned earlier, the Liverpool writer Willie Russell, he gave me a great phrase years ago, and I think a lot of writers don't embrace this. That nothing's ever written; it's rewritten. And so a lot of people are in a rush to put the end on something. And I get it with people who write film scripts. They put the end on and they think, that's it. I've written a film script. And I would say, no, you've just started.
Yeah.
Now you go back and you realize what you wrote yesterday is probably rubbish. Or if it's not rubbish, there's a kernel in there that you might take and go off on another tangent. Are you prepared to have that long journey? Because you're going to need it. You're going to need patience. And it's probably going to go through. I've got scripts now that I've been working on myself that I'm probably in the 20th draft of. And the thing is, you can rewrite till you 6 foot under. Nothing's ever finished.
Yeah.
But there's a point where it's not ready. It's not right, and you need to put it away and put it down and do something else to come back to it. So there's a great patience needed in writing, and you'll know this infinitely yourself.
Well, yes. It marks a year since my own book launch. It's just this month. It was a year since my book launch, and even though I published the book, when I'm talking about it with people in a everyday circumstance, I'll often think, "Oh, I missed that out. I missed that out."
Yeah.
And it's forever happening. There's always those little elements that you missed out, no matter how thorough you've tried to be.
Well, I've done it with films when we've had showings of films and it's edited and it's finished, whatever. You sit there just thinking, I shouldn't have done that. But there's a point you
it's not just me then.
No, it's everyone. I think we'll say the same thing. It's never done, but you need to get it to the point that you think, do you know what, that's ready.
I think you need to take the step in the first place and make that plan of action to start the process in the first place.
I think so, and it's the way I'm approaching this marketing. It's kind of, I wrote a huge list of things I need to do based on all kinds of information and advice coming to me. I looked at the list and just thought, oh my God.
Yeah.
That's huge.
I can relate.
I just go tiny steps and a bit at a time and achieve something each day.
Yeah.
I suddenly realized I've achieved quite a lot.
Yeah.
But if you try to achieve too much too quickly, how many times do people give up because it's too overwhelming, it's too much,
yeah.
You get snowed under.
Break it down. Progress is progress, no matter how small. I learned that in my self-development journey, so yes.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I am with this. That's why I'm not going to do it till September. And it's an arbitrary date, but it happens to tie in with a school term. And I thought, well, that's something to aim for, so I'll do that.
I'll keep an eye on the channels for that then. I think that could be useful for my own child. So,
oh, great, yeah, hopefully.
Well, thank you for talking to me today, Ian. I hope you enjoyed my being on my podcast, and good luck with your book.
That was very quick. I thoroughly enjoyed that.